Mal. Okay.
Hey, welcome to the Wise Woman Healing Garden. How to create healing happening spaces. Susanne, Martina Ricarda, and myself, and also Katrin, who is here in the space, we are part of a group of wise women who, over the last 2 years, held space for the Wise Woman Healing Garden, which is a space for healing and integration. And we want to share our lessons. We will share in this next hour our lessons learned, and what worked, what didn't work, and what is so special about the Wise Women Healing Garden that we decided this needs to be accessible to other people. We need to pass this on, to do something with it. Spread the word. And the healing garden is in a big liquid state also. So this is the time to see what emerges next. And before we start, or as we start, Susanna, I hand over to you.
Yeah, and the healing garden starts with getting centered in yourself. So I invite you to close your eyelids for a moment and shift your attention from the space towards your physical center. With your intention, put your attention on your physical center, which is some fingers below your navel in the center of your body. Collect your thoughts and your imprints and all the energies which are swirling around in your head and let them fall into your physical center. So you're really aware of your centering. And from this point, click your energetic connection to Gaia in the form of a grounding cord, which connects your physical center to the center of Gaia. And you do it by using your clicker, which is in your hand. This cord has a color and a texture. And tell me the color of your grounding cord, please. My grounding cord is black.
Green.
Yellow.
Multicolored.
Dark gray. Thank you. And from this center, from this being centered and connected with Gaia, please click with your clicker your personal bubble of space. You declare it, and it is there. The space which contains your personal energy and information, nothing else. And when you are centered in this way in yourself, please also center in your heart space. Feel your physical heart. Which is contained between the thumb and which rests on your diaphragm. And in the center of your physical heart, you put a little bit of your awareness into this center. It's just a tiny bit of attention while you keep your physical, the most of your attention on your physical center. And in this way, being centered, let yourself become aware of the archetypal garden, of an archetypal garden space. which has a boundary, which can be a fence or a wall or only a line, but it is as a boundary. There's an outside and an inside. And then walk towards the gate, the place where you shift from outside to inside and walk over the threshold into the garden. It is a place where healing is happening. And it takes the form whichever appears in yourself. And get the quality of this garden, which has a lot of different spaces inside. There is maybe a rose hedge or a compost pile. There might be wild places. There might be a pond. Maybe your garden is formal. Maybe it's wild. And be aware that this form can change. And then together, let's meet in a place. And in your time, open your eyes and connect to these beings in the space. We now share one garden, which has in us depicts different places, but we are together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susanne.
We discovered, I'm going to talk, and please just interrupt me, Susanne and Martina, and we're going to share a bit about the garden. And what I find stunning is that we started about 2 years ago after I'd asked for a healing intensive, and it turned out that with the space holders that came together, it was 8 women from all over the globe. There's something magical was happening, and I had the sensation of being lifted, like a physical lifting that you could have from a group of people. But I was lifted for the whole week. It was 8 or 9 days. I was really held in this soft, gentle hold, lifted, not held, but lifted, really had the space. And it was different from a healing intensive, as it turned out, because I would show up in certain spaces, and it wouldn't be a healing process space. It wouldn't be an EHP space. But instead, I remember with Katrin, I had some sessions around just noticing my impulses and then being invited to go on a medicine walk for a couple of hours in nature, and so much information that I gained in there. Or a space with you, Susanne, where we would sit and I was like, okay, I'm ready for the next healing process. Like, I don't know what it is, but let's just do it anyway. And with this push energy, and it was really crucial for me, Susanne, that you said, no, this is not a healing space. I don't get any sense that you need another EHP right now. This is an integration space. And so through this week, I had often two spaces a day, and not all of them were healing processes. And some of them I would go through myself, like the medicine walk. And what I noticed afterwards was really this spaciousness inside me. Something had healed, something was working in me, and it wasn't the intensity of I go through every emotional healing process that comes up place. Yeah, that's when I went through the healing garden the first time. And the second time was just this year in February. And I came out with really more radicality, ready to go and get my projects underway. It was a major booster for me to get my Edgecast going and to be committed to be radically alive and also becoming a reaction activator. And that's a huge step for me to be okay with other people having a reaction to what I have to say. And so it's been hugely empowering, this last one. And I've witnessed over I think it was about 13 people that came through the garden, mostly women, but also a man, that each garden time was really different, tailored to the needs of this person.
And it was not that we created the garden. We discovered it. It's an archetypal space which we process by process discovered. It's not that we had this intentional force of, yes, let's do it. It was like process by process, we discovered more elements of this archetypal space. One of these elements, for example, is a formal entering, being aware that the garden time is separated from ordinary life. It has a formal entering, and it has also a formal going out of the garden. And it has a preparation phase where all the logistics are cleared, and there is a kind of threshold. It's more a threshold space where the intention is cleared. What is my intention to go in the garden, where the garden team forms. So where, all the logistics is prepared so that the garden can emerge. And it's really archetypal. It's a physical space, and it's an energetic space, and an archetypal space, which needs all this preparation around to work.
I had the experience when I stepped into this garden for the first time. I was not even aware that I was stepping in. I was aware that I was stepping out at the end of my time, but I was not aware that I was stepping in. It is like when you are walking around in a city that you don't know, and then you find yourself in a park, and you don't remember when did you step in. But now that you know that you are in this park or in this garden, you know that you will have to go out again. So I was not aware. And I want to say that this garden is not part of the logistics. So when we are talking about the Wise Woman Healing Garden, there is lots of logistics, but the garden is not part of the logistic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There is what we found out, how the garden works is that it's often working over the in-between spaces. So there are processes or coaching spaces or practices, and these events, let's say single events, are connected. They are interwoven. They are happening in the same space, in this magical garden space. And the garden space has a physical form because we're a global team, in form of a Telegram group where all the communication, but not the logistics, where all the communication happens about the processes and whatever comes up. And a lot of aha moments happen in this interwoven, in between spaces. So they also belong. If you want, it's a picture of, there are singled events, processes, and there's the weaving into a tapestry or into a garden space. And this is the integration part. If you want, it's like, if you like in the Chinese universe, and there's these yang elements of action and things happening, and there's also the yin element, which contains all the elements of the happenings. Yeah. And the wise women are especially bringing in this female energy of holding and integrating and weaving together. That's kind of a kind of archetypal feminine element of the garden, which not necessarily needs to be a woman to hold space. Thank you.
I would like to hear from you, Felix, and you, Katrin. I mean, you, Katrin, you are one of the wise women, and I'm glad that you are here. And I would also like to hear from you why, yeah, if you have, from you, Felix, if you have any questions, and from you, Katrin, if you want to share something or ask something or.
Actually, I have no questions. I had some questions about English words I did not understand, or understanding in English conversation, but I don't remember now. And I like to say that I feel connected to this archetypal space from a long, long time. That's why I'm here.
When you say for a long, long time, I have the impulse to ask you how long this time is.
I don't know.
And I would like to hear about your connection. What is your connection to this archetypal space? What does it sense and feel like?
It feels like at the first, it feels like being sad of coming home. And after a while, there is I feel a power which is much bigger than me. And this power directs, and well, I'm willing to serve. I have joy to serve. And the service is to make other people or to make it possible for other people to reach their own way into this garden, into this space where we are all connected.
Mm. So it's an archetype of connection. So connection is one of the bright principles of this archetypal healing garden, as is healing.
Yes.
As is
Celebration.
celebration certainly belongs. What we found out yesterday is that the garden calls the being through. In a way, it's really committed, the space is committed to calling the being forward. And it's a space where a being can be seen, and the space is so safe that the being can come forward without and letting down all the protection mode, the gremlin, everything can go out so the being can come forward, because it's an held space. If you like, it's walled. And that's what I experienced in the garden time, that my being was called forward, what was called through. I had a very strong grip of control and, yeah, especially control and survival in the world. And in the garden, I could let go of this grip, of my survival grip, and show myself and especially experience myself as a delicate being. And also evolve all the parts of my being which have been like a flower, have been closed. And I even to everybody else, but also to my notion.
To your what?
To my own notion, to my own perceiving. I didn't know about this part of me. And nor did the others, and they called it through by in this held space. And I perceived that one process, I didn't make a schedule, like asking before that whoever is going to hold space for me today, but it was like a walk. Whoever had time and showed up took over I don't know the word, like Staffelstab, whoever had time took over. So I had a process, nobody had time, only one person. So I went with her, and it totally matched to what I needed right in that moment. And this is also a miracle, because I could not have planned or constructed this. So as there are 8 space holders, everybody of these space holders has different qualities, different matrix and different kind of ways of holding space, and different specialities also. So I discovered that every space holder came in the right place, in the right time, with exact her specialties or his. I had also one male space holder with her qualities, talents, ways of space holding, and it was really miraculous for me. I coming from this grip control type, and planning and being totally, I needed to have it in a schedule, and being open to whatever appears. This was such a beautiful experience, and also magic, and it also changed a lot of me, how I relate to life, because I made the experience that the things were coming, like as they needed to come. There was a notion about timing, right timing, I got from the garden. That's my story.
And the way we set it up, I want to say that that was possible because the group of wise women as space holders was there for the whole time. So there were these 8 women, and then if a client would show up, someone would show up and saying, hey, I want to go into the garden, then we would form the team of space holders for that particular client or garden visitor. And that wasn't always all 8 women. That was sometimes just, I don't know what was the minimum, maybe 6 women for a given time frame. And on occasion we also had on 1 or 2 occasions we had like space holders that weren't part of the core general garden space holders hold space for individual processes of that visitor, and that worked. And it was, I find it made a big difference that we were traveling together as a team of space holders throughout the whole time. So we would look after the garden, also outside garden visits from the outside, and you would notice that, especially in the last half year, I noticed that somehow we weren't meeting often enough to keep the garden mulch going. It's really the images of a garden work really well, which is not surprising because it is an archetypal garden. Yeah, that was one big thing that really worked, to have a defined group of space holders for a certain amount of time. And where we missed the evolutionary part is my beep is, or what I would do differently is to invite new space holders and make myself, to replace myself earlier. Like to invite others to learn and come in and then hand over or something, so that I can go on to my next projects. And that's, that hasn't happened. And so we got, the garden then can become a bit stagnant on an energetic level. So having a group works, and it needs to also train the next space holders in that group.
Yeah, and somehow it worked for a good amount of time that we met before the garden as a team. What also worked is delete. I want to talk about how this garden team emerged. And we had a weekly group. This was the beginning. We had a weekly meeting group where in different constellations, a core team met. So it was 4, 5, 6 peoples, and it was we met as a team, and from this team the garden emerged. So the team has been so far, we knew each other. So the 8 space holders knew each other from different spaces, and had also a personal transformational history. And I think at least there needs some commitment to tend to the garden. There needs a core team. It needs a core team who commits to tend to the garden as you would need a gardener for a normal garden. And it doesn't have to have much focus, but it needs this consciously space holding. So the garden can emerge whenever somebody has a necessity for going to the garden.
Well, it can open them.
What do you mean?
It is always there, but our commitment to to tend to it means then it is ready to open for somebody who's coming when the time's right for this person. And then what is important for me is that we go with the seasons. For me, it is not surprising that we went stagnant, especially in winter. And right now I feel that there's, well, sorry, you live in New Zealand, and still, for me, this was deep winter when we went sort of dorming. And right now there is this energy of spring, of new garden beds that are tended and new flowers that are being seeded, and the trees are starting to bloom. So it's a whole different energy. And I think it's very important that we follow the seasons in our garden. Yes. So, and I wanted to say it does not emerge for every person, but it opens, since it's always there. That's what I meant with open.
And it's the necessity of some person who wants to go into the garden who calls it force, or makes it possible so it opens. And there needs it, yeah. Then as in your case, Julia, your necessity made us find this archetypal space.
Yeah, and then as we went along and held space, we realized, well, how about, I think that came later, how about we have a garden, like one main space holder for a visitor, I think we called it a garden guide, or some sort of an accompanying person, a Gartenbegleiter. So that would be the person to do the logistics, clarify the logistics, inform the person with the visitor, arrange for the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony, and handle also finances at the end. So we did, I don't even know when that came, but we did ask for a financial exchange, and that was then, ended up experimenting with having one lab fee to be paid up front for the garden time, and then at the end we would have a conversation and let them find whether they wanted to pay more or whether or not. So there was no expectation around there needs to be paid more. It was part of one of those processes, and was actually really beautiful to have that process with you, Katrin. And what we did at the time is we gave that. Yeah, you have something?
I want to add something to the garden guide, and it's, as we are having online spaces, we have been a global team, and it's an online space which is very intensive, and the garden guide somehow secures the space so that a person cannot simply drop out. There's this personal connection to one of us who, so the garden guide also asks if there is something happening. It really tends to this person and says, what's going on with you? I didn't see you in the spaces, or I cannot feel you. What's going on? And so the person cannot drop out, which is very important even for me, which is an important point, because when there are persons who maybe have not so much experience with personal development spaces, they cannot hold space for themselves. If you have persons with a lot of matrix, they can hold space for their own their own development. But persons who maybe are not so experienced, they need more structured or more safe space, more things outside to hold them to go through these opportunities. So that's That's why I find the garden guide a very important part. A mentor. Okay.
And this, well, there are not only big processes, healing processes, or traveling into Gaia processes, which I think is a big one too, but there are also all the check-in processes, little check-in processes within this garden time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really appreciate a lot, not appreciate, but it's one of the very important parts of this garden, is this sharing with all of the space holders what is happening right now. Maybe how my process went, but also what is happening right now with me, when I'm the visitor, whether I feel like, or whether I've drawn a picture, and how I converse with my daughter. I take an example of one of our visitors. And this sharing we did, and so far it went quite well in this Telegram group where we write it. But we can also call on somebody in our group, or several ones, and say, hey, who has time? I want to do some sharing. And so there could be some integration sharing, or some just sharing within the garden place too. And we would, and the visitor would say, oh, I would like to sit under the tree, under the birch tree with you, or the cherry tree, and then we could sit down and talk there. Also, not only one-to-one, but also in groups. Also in a group. And all these possibilities are really going into the garden. When I'm in the garden as a visitor, I can go to the compost pile myself and just lay down next to it, or maybe on it, and let time work there, and then go out again, because I'm in the garden. I am allowed to go to the compost pile, for instance, or the meadow, or sit on the stream. Yeah. So I appreciate it, and do appreciate all this.
As you are speaking, I get some clarity about what happened in me as a space holder, even after this Wise Woman Healing Garden is somehow perhaps ending or changing into something else, or yeah, whatever. And the difference, what changes in me as a space holder when I hold space for someone in a process, is that I see that this is not only the process. It's not only you make the logistics, you meet, you ask the question, what can I do for you? You go through the process for 60 to 90 minutes, and then you find the new sentence, and it's over, and the space closes. It is much more. It starts earlier and it lasts longer, and it is. And also what I sense is that my responsibility as a space holder is much, much bigger than only this 90 minutes. This
Yes,
is a result of the garden time in my case, yeah.
Yeah, and there is also a lightness in this responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are a team, and becomes very obvious that it's not us holding the space. It's the space making things possible.
Yeah.
And it's our awareness and our presence in the space, and I can only speak of me, my experience, which makes certain things possible. So it's running through me. The space is also somehow running through me and also transforming myself. as you said,
Yeah, so
Martina,
yeah, go.
yeah, it's not only this 90 minutes. The process is running afterwards. It's running. So I make the new decision. Well, half an hour later, I have an idea. I check in with some spaceholder. This spaceholder has another idea. Some pictures come up. I go for a swim. Next thing comes. And so the process starts weaving in, and it's also, it starts weaving in my life, yeah. It's not only a new decision. The new decision starts really weaving it in a new practice, in my new life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this garden is much bigger. It's a really big garden, and it's not only the logistical speciality that we set up. It's really the space. The difference between the EHP intensive and the Wise Women Healing Garden is the space, is the garden. That's the difference. And this is not a logistical thing.
I've found a word when you talked, Susanne, when you were talking. It was, we are calling the garden. The person who's coming is calling the garden. It's not holding space, it is calling the space. And well, this is for a week, 2 weeks, 10 days, at least a week. No, at least 9 days. I don't even know if there is an at least, but it needs to be longer time. So the whole space that has been called can work. And it is interwoven with, for me, in my case, it was always interwoven with a real garden. My real garden is nature. Is also forest, is not necessarily my garden next to my house. And it always has been interwoven with the Wise Women Healing Garden when I was in there. I don't know this of any other spaces. And I must admit, I've never made an emotional healing intensive. That's the name, right, Julia? I never took part in that one. Mine was in the garden, and all 3 times were very different. Thank you.
I really like this, that it's the Wise Woman Healing Garden is connected to really connected to Gaia. Can be physically connected to Gaia. I like this very much. Yeah. It's the magical space, as you said, Martina and Ricarda, which is the space. That's the magic of the Wise Woman Healing Garden. It's not the events in the space.
And I think all of us are longing to have a physical Wise Women Healing Garden. And here we are, Julia in New Zealand. There was Janet in New Zealand, Kiri in Australia, some space holders from North America joining us in Garden Times. Oof.
Switzerland.
Switzerland, yes, and a lot of Germany. And so far, what is arriving for the people outside is that it's an online space, and at the same time it's not. And there must be more possibilities to connect it with physical gardens all over the world that have a similar quality. And I think we're open to new possibilities here.
Well, I want to mention that there was actually a physical garden, almost like a physical garden space that Kiri Beer held in Australia, where she set it up so that the other wise women were also space holding through technology, through screens. So she had 3 cameras and 1 screen, TV screen. So we would come and join sessions. I think there was almost in every session, at least one of us was there bringing something, like connecting with the space and then holding space with Kiri for that session. It was a huge, space, and it knocked her off her feet. And she's like, "Yeah, got to be careful, like how you set that up, because it was really massive." And so that was a combination of the online and the offline version.
Yeah.
And yes, I would love to see physical garden spaces emerge as well. And there's absolutely that potential. And that maybe brings us also to this, like, where's the garden now? Like, what's happening with the garden? I think it would be worth saying something about that. Like, where to from here?
Yeah, for me, something happened that our core team, our team, somehow developed in different directions. And as you said before, Julia, for myself, I did not make myself, how's the word? I did not find someone to replace myself. I did not build up a person and give her my insights and whatever I learned about the garden and make her, like, empower her so she could take over. And my interest, I love the garden, and my interest has somehow shifted. I go on with my other work, whatever this is. And I observe that this is coming. I know it from me, Martina, from you, Martina Ricardo, your focus has shifted. So that's happening for me. So the team somehow moved. Yeah.
And Katrin and Jördis, I hear, are really committed still to holding space for that Wise Woman Healing Garden. I am also leaving as a space holder. And I see, so there's a necessity for other space holders to become part of that existing Wise Woman Healing Garden. And I see that this is also a blueprint for others to connect to for other space holder teams, if anybody wants to create that, to open up a Wise Woman Healing Garden space or a Wise Men Healing Garden space, or I don't know what the Wise Women aspect of it is so much. It is a healing garden. And there is a specific quality that comes from that, or came from that, which is in my research that I'm doing right now really interesting, in that if there's only women, and it's a total everything space. And so I'm super glad to hear, Felix, that you are interested in holding space and then being in service of the garden. I think it would be, maybe that's the next evolutionary step necessary, to have the nothing there also, like the nothing consciously included, or holding space. I mean, that then maybe it becomes the archetypal garden, the archetypal healing garden.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no everything without nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really go in resonance with the real garden, the real earth under our feet. And to be aware the garden is anytime around us, under our feet, even when you see only little patch or what is of grass, yeah, you see your brothers and your sisters, and can feel the connection, and this yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily to become a man's garden as well. I don't know. Because I got I think 1.5 years ago, I got the substance of what is the old name of Gaia, Mother Earth. Yeah. It's a yeah. I think the Wise Woman Healing Garden as I think Julia, you referred and at the beginning the capacity of giving birth to something. It's a special quality. Yeah, thank you.
Wise women, to me, does not mean women. It means it puts some of my attention on the archetypal feminine as being an important part. Yes, that's all. So that's why I'm fine with wise women, and I'm as equally fine with a lot of male space holders and a lot of male visitors coming. It is not something exclusive. And it does remind me of Mother Earth, yes. Mother Earth, yes.
Yes, I want to mention that for me, it was necessary at the time to be held only by women. That was part of my journey. So that's how it emerged. And I see the beauty of men and women collaborating. And I also see the necessity sometimes of women having only women's spaces and men having only men's spaces. So depending on where someone is on their journey, I think it could be great to have men's healing gardens and women's healing gardens and all sorts of, it doesn't have to be just one format or just one garden, one even online garden, or one space holder group that taps into the garden.
I see a garden, and there are many spaces are possible, and there can be a men's corner, and there could be a man's corner where there's only men, and a woman's corner where there are only women, and then there are all kinds of different possibilities for spaces in that garden. This is what I see.
And what I want for the garden is to flourish. That means that people feel attracted to become space holders in this garden. And that you, whoever you are, and seeing this video, realize that you could become a space holder of an archetypal garden. And if you, whoever is seeing this video, are attracted and need some more guidance or information or inspiration, I wanted to invite you to reach out to me and ask your questions. And I would be so happy to transmit whatever is needed. Even so, I'm right now not holding space for a healing garden, Wise Woman Healing Garden. And this might also change.
You mean for a space for somebody who is coming as a visitor? You say you don't hold space for a Wise Woman Healing Garden. Can you clarify?
Yeah, as for the format right now, I'm not holding space for someone who is going into a Wise Woman Healing Garden. Yeah.
This means that if somebody wants to enter now, you wouldn't be there, or you would be there.
I don't understand what you're
There's
asking.
confusion in the space. Susanna, I understand you that you are leaving the Wise Woman Healing Garden as a space holder.
I have been,
Okay.
actually. And I offer to whoever is listening and feels inspired to transmit whatever is needed. So reach out to me if you want.
Yes, I'm also available for questions. I want this garden to be available. So I want people that need the garden to be able to find it. People who would benefit from it. And honestly, that's everybody. I don't think there's anybody that would not benefit. And at different times. Maybe at different times.
And there's a website.
Yes, there's a
Susanna,
website.
you created a beautiful website.
And
Julia, and with many contributions from people having been to the garden. Yes.
It's wisewomenhealinggarden.mystrikingly.com. So easy to remember.
we are going to transform this website so it contains the information and the logistical part. As Martina Ricarda said, but the logistic part is not the garden.
Yes, and I would like to invite Felix for a time in the garden. And I'm aware that, Felix, that I don't, well, it's not clear who would be space holder, but it would be a wise woman and in some kind or the other. And I just want to invite you, Felix, as experiencing a garden time. Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, we're interested to find other space holders too, who want to work in this garden and be in this garden and tend to this garden. And I think it's very good to go to the garden themselves to enjoy it. Maybe first, maybe later, but it's an important part.
Yeah, I think what we found out is that it needs to go for a space holder first to the garden, through the garden themselves, so they get a taste and they get an experience for themselves. How is this? And then you can hold space for other people joining the garden, for visitors going into the garden. And when who are listening to this video, when you feel the necessity to go through the garden, so you call forward the garden, you can create this garden team for yourself out of your necessity. So that's also a possibility to instantly create a new garden team, spaceholder team, garden spaceholder team, gardeners, team of gardeners.
Yes.
As Julia did when she first call forth the garden.
What I hear is that you want to say that it needn't be the same people that have done it before, like us, but the garden has more possibilities to be called forward, and it can be called forward in more teams than just the old team.
Yes.
And we are here to well, I don't want to say help with that, but to support this. And of course, well, I'm available for new garden teams, and I'm available for the garden, and I'm still tending to the garden myself. And there are qualities. So I don't know what's going to happen, which is a part of the garden. I do know, though, that it's going in seasons, and I adhere to that. Yeah.
Thank you. We're coming to an end. I want to know whether you have anything else to say, Felix, or anybody else.
Actually, now I've yes, I'm happy that you all started to explore and to yes, to create this space. Because it's I think it's a necessity yes, just this, and I feel, and I go into resonance with this necessity, because I carried in myself for so long, without having or creating spaces for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Thank you. I feel glad
that's
about
it.
that.
Yeah, for now. Thanks.
Okay, this is us.
And I hear one important element, and I want to say it. It's about team. The Wise Woman Healing Garden is about not you alone. It's about the team. So that's what I hear from you, Felix. You cannot, somehow it doesn't work to create it alone, or it's maybe not so. The essence is team. Thank you. And I want to invite you to together. We have been together now, and I want to invite you to together leave the garden. No, it doesn't work together. Individual, that we now step out of the garden and go, like consciously go to the threshold. Maybe it's a gate, and go through and close the gate. Maybe you look back. Thank you for joining for this hour. And the garden has one magic secret. You can roll it in and put it in your pocket. Now that you have experienced the garden, you can roll it out or unfold it, even if there's only a little patch of grass. Thank you. Thank you for being there.